Alright, if you've followed my channel for any amount of time, you know that I am a monstrous fan of the Foggernaut class, even ranking them number 1 in my tier list video for class fun factor. So it only seems fitting that I should have a class guide showing you guys how to use this amazing character. Now I've labeled this guide as beginner, and that's only because I cover spells and gear associated with levels 1 through 100. But my hope is that there's some information in here that is going to be valuable for all gameplay levels. If you could do me a real quick favor and just smack that like button, it would really help me out. And if you like Dofus PVM tips, guides, and gameplay, well, that's what my channel is all about. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you know when my next video goes live. All right, let's do this. All right, we're going to start off with basically what is the main significance of the Foggernaut class, and that's going to be the use of the turrets. You start out with 3 in the first 100 levels. The Harpooner, which is basically your attack turret. You're going to throw it out there, it's going to shoot a needle at up to 3 enemies per turn, or it might even shoot at you, but I'll get more into that here in a minute. You also get the Lifesaver turret, which is your healing turret. It will also heal up to 3 allies or enemies per turn. And then the final one you get is the tack turret. This is more of a neutral kind of turret, but this one is going to push enemies or allies, and we'll go over how these all work in great detail here in a minute. The first thing I want to cover is going to be the spells that kind of directly relate to turrets. So the first thing you're going to have here is the evolution. Every turret can be in 3 stages, tiers, or evolutions. I'll probably refer to it as tiers just because it's easier to say repeatedly, and I'm going to say it a lot. But it's important to note you can only have 1 turret at each of those stages at any time. You can't have all 3 turrets at tier 3, but you can have 1 at tier 3, 1 at tier 2, and 1 at tier 1. You can actually even have all 3 of them just at tier 1 if you wanted to. But when you evolve turrets, they get more powerful and they begin to give you some buffs, and we're going to go over those here in a little bit. But the way evolve works is you have a turret on the map somewhere, you click evolve, and you select this, and if you hover over top of this, you can now see it's an evolution state 2. All right, the next spell you have here is called Salt Armor, and the way this works is you cast it right on the turret. That's going to put a resistance on it for distance ranged attacks, and it puts it in the unmovable state. Next is a pretty straightforward spell. It's called Grapnel, and if you look at this, you can travel a certain amount of distance straight forward in diagonal. You just click the turret, and you're going to pull yourself straight across. You can use this on allies as well, same with the last spell. You can use it on allies as well, but you're not going to travel as far, and it's not going to resist as much. So you can use it on allies, but grapnel is probably something you're mainly going to use on your turrets. All right, now I mentioned earlier that the Harpooner and the healing turrets can work both for you or enemies. It can go either way. So right now, this Harpooner, if I'm within the distance of it and I'm one of available targets, it might shoot me. But this Dreadnought spell, which has got some good range to it, it's a 1 space plus. If I cast this on myself, I will no longer be targeted by the Harpooner, and it goes straight over there. All right, same works for the healing turret. If the healing turret is within range of enemies and allies, it will heal the enemies as well. If I cast Dreadnought on the enemies, it is now immune to it, so it will no longer receive heals. Something that's really cool also, if you cast this on yourself or an ally and an enemy, both turrets will act the way they're supposed to now. So now the Harpooner will not attack me, and the healing turret will not heal the enemy. Pretty sweet, right? All right, so next up we have Breakwater. And the way this works is it is going to allow a turret to take the damage on behalf of the allies that have this protection cast upon it. The way it works, though, is you've got to be right next to a turret, and when you cast it on that turret, it's got a very small AoE around it. And what this now does is if I receive any close combat attacks, like this Harpooner, which is going to shoot my character right now, that turret will take the damage on my behalf. See that? I got hit by 222, but it went to the turret instead. Now, it does have to be close range combat. If I'm any farther away, it does not work. Important note though, you don't have to be next to the turret to actually have it intercept your damage. So as long as you have that on yourself, it only lasts for 2 turns, so not a whole lot of time. If you run out there somewhere away from the turret, as long as you're being attacked by close range combat, that turret from across the map will still take the damage for you. All right, and the last spell I got here on this list is Piston, and it's a pretty straightforward push spell. You can use it on allies as well, won't push as far, but if you use it on a turret, boom, you can push it up to 6 spaces away. All right, so let's start talking about the turrets themselves and what all they can do for you. So you can have one turret at Evolution 3, as I mentioned earlier. Evolution 3, the Harpooner will no longer attack allies, so you don't necessarily need to be putting Dreadnought or any spell on there to keep your allies protected. They'll be protected if the Harpooner is at level 3. And the same concept goes with the Lifesaver as well. If it's at level 3, it will no longer target enemies to be healed. The Tac Turret, though, if it's at level 3, it will still push enemies and allies. One thing to note is the turrets do not keep their evolution if you move them to a new location. So this one right now, I've got it at level 3. If I cast it to a new place on the map, it drops back down to Evolution 1. Now, a couple things specifically to the Lifesaver. The Lifesaver has a range of 1 to 6 spaces away for healing. I'm standing 7 spaces away right now, which is too far to get a heal. However, it's not too far to get a buff. If the Lifesaver is at Evolution 2 or 3, you will also get a Vitality buff up to 7 spaces away. So right now, I am 7 spaces away, which was too far to get a heal. But as long as I'm within 7 spaces and have line of sight, if you look at my character, I just got a 477 Vitality buff, and I'll get that every turn as long as I stay within range. If I go one more space to 8 spaces away, you will see that it can no longer reach me. But if I have line of sight blocked, you will also see that it's not going to give me that buff as well. So you have to have line of sight and be within 7 spaces, and you'll get that buff. All right, so the Tac Turret. The Tac Turret pushes. That's all it does. It just pushes. Its range does change depending upon the evolutionary state. At Evolution 1, it has a range of 1 to 2 spaces, and it will push 2 spaces. So right here, it can't get me. If I scoot a little closer, it's going to push me 2 spaces from the spot that I'm on. It's stacked, so it's not like it's going to push me out to 2 spaces. It pushes me 2 spaces in addition to where I'm standing within range. At Evolution 2, it has a range of 1 to 4. I'm, again, 1 space outside of its range at the moment, and it will push me 5 spaces. So if I just step inside this boundary, it's going to push me 5 spaces away from here. Like that. And at Evolution 3, it has a range of 1 to 6 spaces. Again, I'm standing 1 space too far. And if I go inside of that range, it's going to push me 6 spaces from here, making a total range of basically 11. So you need to be mindful of the fact that it doesn't push you the distance of 1 to 6 spaces. It's going to push you 6 spaces on top of where you are within that range. Just keep mindful of that for hitting walls, hitting enemies, or maybe people not landing where you thought they were. You got to count the number of spaces of where they're standing so you know where they're going to land. Just like the Lifesaver, if you are within line of sight and range, you will get a range buff on your character. I believe it's 2 range at Evolution 2 and it's 3 range at Evolution 3. Oh, and I guess I should also point out the Tac Turret pushes in a straight line and diagonal. So if I'm standing over here diagonal to it, just like the way the grapnel works, it pushes diagonal and straight. All right, last turret to talk about is the Harpooner, and you are going to have a lot of fun with this. Now, the range for the Harpooner is 1 to 7 spaces. If I step 1 step closer, it will shoot me. The way the Harpooner works is it's going to attack enemies or allies in whatever element is strongest of the character, I believe. I think I heard somebody say it attacks the enemies and whatever will do the most damage, but I don't think that's correct. You can let me know in the comments below if you think it's one way or the other, but I'm pretty sure it's going to attack in whatever your strongest element is. At Evolution 2 and 3, if you are within range and line of sight of the Harpooner, it will give you a power buff. I believe it's 150 at tier 2, and I think it's 200 power at tier 3. Also, when the Harpooner attacks, it will get health back for half of whatever damage it manages to do to the enemies. Now, under each of these turrets, you'll see that I've got a spell listed here, and that's because if each of these are at tier 3, it also has an effect with these spells. Now, the ambush is a attack that will hit in all 4 elements, and you can use this just as a regular attack spell. It's a fantastic attack spell for the Foggernaut. But if your harpooner is at level 3 and now you use ambusher, it's going to use the harpooner to do some massive damage to your targets, and it is so fun. And it can hit from anywhere on the map. It doesn't matter if you've got it tucked all the way in the corner. It does not need range or line of sight to be able to hit the target. All you have to be able to do is reach it with your ambusher spell, and it'll do the damage. Now, you can only attack 1 enemy per turn, but you can do it on a few enemies. All right, and just like the harpooner, this first aid is a healing spell you get from the Foggernaut. You can cast it directly on somebody that's injured. But if your lifesaver is at level 3, it will now use it and get a gigantic buff in the healing ability. What's really cool about these things, even at level 3, both the lifesaver and the harpooner, at the end of their turn, they still get a turn. So if you use the lifesaver spell and the harpooner spell to do big attacks and heals in a turn, at the end of that turn, they will still also get to do their round of heals and attacks. So you can really dish out a lot of heals and a lot of damage in a single turn with that. All right, now Spyglass is very unique in what it can do. So as you know, if it's at level 3, it's going to push still. Now, Spyglass is an attack that you can use directly on an enemy just as a straight water attack. But if the attack turret is at level 3, it will switch places with the attack turret. Now again, it doesn't matter where the attack turret is on the map. As long as you can reach it with your spell, it will switch places with it. Something that's kind of cool about that too is you can even cast it on yourself to switch places, to get out of a bad situation, move things around as well. And if you do cast this on yourself or an ally, you get a range buff. So it's a very versatile spell. You can use it to get yourself completely away from an enemy, or maybe to bring an enemy all the way next to the harpooner. It's very versatile in what you can do. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the other spells that you're going to have with your Foggernaut. I've got these 4 grouped together right here, the ones that all have kind of an X shape on them. And that's because all 4 of these are diagonal attacks. They have one in every element, and each one does something different. And no matter which element you are, with maybe the exception of the intelligence, if you're not the intelligence build, you're probably going to want to keep all 3 of these on your board to use because they're very versatile. The intelligent one I'll show you first. It's a great attack and it steals health, but it's intelligence based. So if you're not an intelligence based Foggernaut, this one is not going to be extremely helpful because you're probably not going to get a whole lot of health back from that. Strength one here is a pushback spell, and you will use this a lot. If you stack hardly any kind of pushback damage on yourself, you can do incredible damage using this. And if you use Trident first, which is again, it's a direct damage spell, but it stacks a pushback damage buff on that enemy. So if you cast that first on the enemy, and then you use this, you're gonna do even more damage with that pushback spell. It's awesome. With the agility spell Tide, you're literally going to switch places with enemies. And I think you can use that on allies as well. And then the last one is Turret, which is the water-based one, and it's an attraction spell at diagonal. And again, extremely versatile spells. You'll probably use these no matter which element you are, with maybe the exception of the intelligence one. All right, continuing with the rest of the spells, I touched on the Trident one, so I will go ahead and tell you about Anchor, which is the spell that you start with on the Foggernaut. Has incredible range, awesome damage, and probably one of the best reasons why my biggest recommendation for starting with this class is Strength, because you will hit things from all the way across the map with incredible damage, and you throw your harpooner across the map, let it do some damage. You can get a lot of levels without having to do hardly anything at the beginning of this game. Now, the other intelligence spell you'll get is this Vapor, and it's a linear I mean, it's not short, but it's not really a long-ranged attack. It's kind of, I guess, mid-range here, 1 to 5 range. And it's got a unique AoE. It's going to be the 2 spaces directly in front of you, and then the 2 on the end out from there, which is nice because it allows you to hit around a corner, but it's not exactly an AoE attack that you're going to get 4 enemies in on a regular basis. Yes, you'll find times when you can do that, but for the most part, it's an okay attack. Intelligence builds are decent, especially if you're with a group of people, but being between the levels of 1 and 100, it's not as strong, I think, as the strength side of things, but it's a good build, especially after 100. Next up, I will show you the agility one because again, they only get one additional spell. This is one that you will probably keep on your character no matter which element you are, and it's a straight up pushback spell. You will use this to get out of all kinds of situations. As far as chance spells go, we already talked about Spyglass a little bit. You can cast it on yourself to get a nice range buff, and then you can cast it directly on enemies to do chance damage. Froth is pretty much, again, it's going to be a linear AoE attack that just pushes. The Foggernaut has quite a bit of pushing abilities. In fact, a pushback build is very viable for the Foggernaut, and I've heard it's probably one of the funnest builds to do. I've never played the pushback one yet, but you can see why. In all these different elements, you got so many different ways to push enemies. And that just leaves Scapender, I think is how you pronounce that, which is basically just a straight up buff spell. You can cast this on yourself. It's a small AoE around you, and it's going to give you an MP, 25 damage, and then additional pushback damage. So again, if you want to try a pushback build, it's very viable with this class. You're going to have a great time, and people are going to hate you as you just smash them repeatedly against things. All right, now for some tips and tricks. I got a handful of these, and you'll find plenty more on your own, but here's a few to get you started. Don't forget, you can hide your harpooner in a corner somewhere completely away from the battle and just get it to evolution 3. Now we can come over here and we can use ambusher. It's going to reach. This type of thing will help keep your harpooner from ruining fight challenges, and it will also help by not triggering things that maybe you're set up with idols or boss mechanics. So a great way to still get great use out of the harpooner, but you don't have to worry about it doing something that you don't want it to do. All right, the attack turret can also be a fantastic way to get multiple allies down the map quickly. So you can come out here, throw a attack turret out, go ahead and evolve it, and then as long as any of your allies are in a straight line, it's going to push everybody that are within those spaces down the map for you. Like so. Also, don't forget you can use both the Dreadnought and Breakwater to block line of sight of the harpooner without taking damage. So if you got something here, you don't want it to get hit, you can put this on yourself for the first couple turns, and then once that wears off, because it'll block you for 2, go ahead and now use the harpooner itself. So now when it shoots you, it's going to take the damage instead of you. Also, another trick you can do, you can use your turrets to block narrow paths like that so enemies can't get through. However, maybe you're fighting something that pushes and you're trying to keep that from happening. You can stack another turret. Now, you don't want to stack the attack turret here. It's just going to push your harpooner down the way, but you can stack the lifesaver right behind the harpooner, and now it can't be pushed that direction. So if I stood here, put that there, this harpooner is not going to go anywhere. Follow up to that, you can also use this as a way to get your own personal heals. You can stick your lifesaver into a corner or right behind you. You stand in front of it. Now you can't be pushed, and if the enemy's on this side of you attacking, you're getting a heal every turn while continuing to hit on that enemy. Another tip I'll remind you of is be mindful and be looking for things that you can do at diagonals, because there's a lot of things Foggernauts can do between pushing, pulling, switching places. They got all kinds of capabilities. You just got to be looking for it, which can be a little tricky because not all classes have so many abilities they can do at an angle. And one last tip I got for you, which is more of a cautionary thing, you can throw your turrets up to 8 spaces away. However, below level 100, grapnel will only work 6 to 7 spaces away. So if you've run all your distance, then you throw your turret as far as it will go, you will find very quickly that your grapnel no longer gets you there. Now, if you do end up in a pinch, if you haven't used Scrap Hander yet, you can use this to get yourself an extra MP, which has saved me many times where I could still then grapple to what I was trying to go to. But just be mindful that you can throw 8 spaces away, but until you get past level 100, grapnel will not grab 8 spaces away. All right, so which element would I recommend based upon my experience with this? Now, again, this is just my opinion. You can build any one that you want and try any of them that you'd like. If you're running solo a lot and you want high damage, you want really good range, strength will not let you down. I highly recommend strength as a just great damage dealing Foggernaut. Chance also is a great long range, high damage build. It also has 3 spells between the ranges of 1 and 100, just like the strength strength does. However, you're going to be a little limited on the fact that you only have one diagonal attack in chance until you get to level 50 to get Spyglass. So until then, you're going to be kind of running around with not a whole lot of attacks in your element that you can do. So maybe use strength until you get to level 50, then switch over and try the chance build. If you're going to be running with groups a lot and you like playing the role of a healer, the Intelligence Foggernaut is fantastic. Now, I feel like they don't really begin to shine in their capabilities and being able to do good damage until above level 100, so you might feel a little bit of frustration below level 100. You got one linear mid-range attack that's got kind of an odd-shaped AoE. Yeah, you can hit around corners, which can be a nice perk. Your heals are going to be better because you got that working for you also. But as if you were going to be running around solo a lot and playing by yourself a lot, you might not enjoy being straight intelligence until you're over level 100. Now, eventually, I hope to make an advanced guide where I'm going to cover the levels between 101 and 200. So if you want to make sure you don't miss out on that, make sure you hit subscribe. I don't know when it's coming, but eventually it'll be here, and then you'll be able to watch that and check it out. Agility would definitely be probably my least recommended build for the Foggernaut, at least in this level range of 1 to 100. It's because you got one diagonal attack and you got one pushback spell that's linear. Again, you're just so limited in what you can do that agility spells are great for being used with the other elements between the levels of 1 and 100, but as a standalone element, it would not be my recommendation. All right, so I've come up with just a few gear recommendations. A lot of this you will have to tailor it to how you plan on building and playing your Foggernaut. If you're a pushback build, you might want something totally different. Range maybe isn't as important as high damage, so you can make adjustments where you see fit. But here's my recommendations to maybe get you started. First recommendation I have for every class, every build, it doesn't matter what it is, first thing you get when you come out of Incarnum is get the Pee-wee set associated with your element. If you're a strength build, get the yellow. If you're a chance build, get the blue. The sets are usually dirt cheap and have incredible stats for what you pay for it. Fantastic starter set no matter what you're playing. If you're going to be strength or intelligent build, I recommend going with the gobble set probably as your next setup. It comes with AP, lots of good stats, good vitality, and if you're liking that setup, once you get past the gobble range, switch up to the royal gobble set. If you're looking to go to a chance set after your Pee-wee set, both the farmer set and the sponge set are kind of the two that I lean towards. One is more, the sponge set I believe is more of a chance agility hybrid, but it's got good stats. Both of these, again, they don't get too expensive typically because they're pretty easy to come by, but I would maybe go one of those two routes if you're looking for chance. Agility, I'm not bringing any recommendations because I don't think it's a good idea. Definitely green Pee-wee set would be where you want to start, but you'll want to do some looking on your own if you're trying to go agility at this stage in the game. All right, these next setups I've got for you, I tried to come up with some suggestions for level 50 and level 100. I'll explain which are which as we go through these. Again, these are just ideas, suggestions. You can customize these how you see fit, but I tried to prioritize range with the strength and the chance builds. So maybe if the range isn't as important to you, you can make some adjustments and bring that down some, and you might be able to beef up your vitality or beef up your strength. I will also try to include links in the description if I can figure out how to get individual links for these different sets that I'm showing you. I kept getting the same link for each set. So if somebody wants to shoot over to my Discord and kind of let me know how to get around that, that would be great. And then I will add those to the description. I made these sets off of a website called dofuslabs.io. That I will include in the link below. So if you wanted to go here and do some customizing yourself and try to come up with a setup that you really like, or put this one together and then start making changes, that's a real easy way to do that. But this is what I would go with a level 50 strength build. Oh, one quick recommendation on this setup. At level 58, you can get your hands on what's called the Wheelie Amulet. Wheelie, not that expensive. But if you do that and you switch it out, that'll get you an extra AP at level 58, which is a pretty early stage to get a solid AP amulet. For a level 100 strength build, here's my next recommendation. Again, the Rhine Needle that I picked is for AP, strength, and vitality. but you can switch that out to another element. Maybe you're going with a strength and intelligence hybrid. You might want to switch that to something different. Perhaps you're going crit build. You can switch that to something different. So very customizable. I was trying to get up to 11 AP and still have good range, which is why I've got this set up here. If you're looking to go the chance route, because hey, who doesn't like extra prospecting? Here's what I got put together for a level 50 chance build. Tried to keep the range up again. Again, at level 58, I would probably switch out the amulet to the wheelie one to get your AP up a little bit more. But this is a good solid start here. You can even switch that weapon out for maybe something that is going to be a chance weapon that you can attack with. The one that I picked out is strictly for the stats, so you're not going to actually want to swing that at anything. A couple things you might want to switch out at level 60 if you're going chance. At level 60, you can switch the hat out for a Kara cap, which is an AP hat, and you can switch the boots to a Kara boot. Now that means you will need to then switch either the cape or the ring from the Aquadala set, because that would give you two-piece sets. But that set for the Kara cap and Kara boots is phenomenal for chance builds. For level 100 suggestion, here we go. Now I will tell you, when it comes to chance, around level 100 all through 90 and 100, there is a bazillion different fantastic chance pieces. You want more range, you want more AP, you want higher damage, you want better prospecting, more wisdom, whatever you want. Do a lot of looking on that website and switching some pieces around for whatever is most important to you. I tried to keep the range up and I tried to keep the chance up. Now the AP was already at 11, so I went with a Drago Turkey, but if you want 12 AP, switch it to a Rhine Needle. Now as far as intelligence goes, I only put together a recommendation for level 100 because at those lower levels, I think the royal sets are gonna do you really well, and then you can kind of mix and match your way up from there. But as far as level 100, again, there are some really good choices, but I stuck very heavily to heals and intelligence. So range doesn't matter at this point in the intelligence build. You got two spells that are range modifiable. Those are going to be the spells that interact with your turrets. But those range spells already have a range of like 1 to 7, which is almost enough range to get you to those turrets. Now the extra range will be nice if you want to be able to stay further away and still cast breakwater or things on those turrets. But if that's not something that you're running into as an issue, so I stuck primarily to heals, which is why this thing has really good heals. But again, you can customize this. You want higher damage, you can definitely get higher damage in on this. But here's one recommendation for you for a level 100 intelligent healing Foggernaut. There you have it, my favorite fun class in the game of Dofus, at least as of right now. And now you know how to use them in all kinds of fun ways. If I got any spells that were still kind of confusing, or I left something off that you wanted to follow up with on a question, or if I got something wrong, please let me know in the comments below. I will try to reply as often as I can to those. Also, if there is something that I got as a mistake or mispronounced, sometimes during editing I find things that I said incorrectly, I will pin a comment at the top of the description if some of those are brought to my attention with the corrections in there. So feel free to look at that as well. If something is not working right, that might be where you can spot what was the correct answer. Again, thank you so much for all the support you give me on the channel. If you haven't already and you could smack that like button for me, I'd really appreciate it. It'd help me out. And again, if you like Dofus PVM tips, guides, and gameplay, well, that's what I'm here for. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you know exactly when those videos go live. Until next time, you all be safe out there, and I will see you on the next one.